Welcome. This is Marnie. I'm here today with our guest, Tricia Clark, and we're going to be talking about boundaries that transform leadership. Grab a notepad of some kind because we're going to be covering why every leader needs clear boundaries, what boundaries look like, and how to communicate them clearly, when to add a new boundary, as well as why boundaries help team relationships thrive. Our guest today is Tricia Clark. She's a Christian speaker for healthy boundaries who helps women of faith create deeper and healthier relationships. She loves using stories, insights, and practical tools to equip women to set boundaries with clarity and confidence. And you can learn more about her over at Tricia Clark, K. Clark, TriciaKClark.com. Also invite her to speak via womenspeakers.com. And I'm excited to welcome you here today. Welcome, Tricia.
Oh, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored.
It's great to have you here. And I want to just start. Boundaries is a very important word to me. I was not really aware that people were setting boundaries on me my whole life. And I definitely wasn't aware of the power of boundaries until probably 10 years ago, at which point understanding boundaries really saved my marriage. And I'm really so grateful for boundaries. And not just for them, but to be able to understand them, to be able to apply them in a godly way. So where did you get interested in boundaries? How did that start for you?
Oh, yeah. Kind of the same. Like I didn't even know boundaries were a thing. And so I didn't have boundaries my entire life. And
Yeah.
I just kind of got wrapped up in some really unhealthy relationships pretty much my whole life.
Mhm.
And so eventually I just came to like that fork in the road where God really opened up a door for me to learn what boundaries were and how to use them.
Yeah.
And I really started applying that to some of my relationships, and it was transforming. And
Yeah.
so I really have a passion now to teach women about boundaries because they are vital to your relationships.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. I don't want to miss a moment here of what you've got prepared for us.
All right.
So first of all, let's start with the why. Why? Why does it matter?
Well, because when we don't have boundaries, then no one has clear direction of what the expectations are. And so they need to know what we're okay with and what we're not okay with. So those boundaries help to kind of keep everybody on their side of the street. I think the most important thing that I want women to kind of walk away with today as leaders is that boundaries are going to give you greater confidence. They're going to give you unwavering integrity, and they're going to be authentic connections that it's going to give you as leaders. So, and then I love this verse that I found in 1 Peter 5:2-3. It says, shepherd God's flock willingly and eagerly, not by lording over them, but by being an example. So,
Yeah. I think one of the things that surprised me about the why boundaries are so helpful is that once I understood that I hadn't been aware of them
yeah.
and have been living without them,
Mhm.
I understood that what was happening to me
Mhm.
was that someone would ask me to do something.
Oh, yeah.
I would say yes. I should have said no, but I would say yes.
Right.
And then I would do it and I would feel a little resentful toward them.
Absolutely.
And it was shocking to me when I understood that that was my problem. It was not their problem for asking me. It was my problem for saying yes and holding it against them, which is really not a fair place to play. I mean, that's not
Right.
okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And that was something I found myself. I am a recovering people pleaser. So it is a tough thing for me because I want to give, and do for everybody because I don't want them to be disappointed at me. And I don't want them to be mad at me. I hate rejection. I hate feeling like someone's upset with me. So I will do whatever it is to make them happy, but
Yeah.
in the end, just like you said, it becomes I'm resentful now towards them for me not holding the boundary.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. It's shocking when you realize, oh, that was me.
Right? And it's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my daughter's she's so sweet with my grand boy. She always says, Mom, it's okay to say no. You need to say no. And I'm like, no. I'm never saying no to the grandkids. So yeah, that's something that sometimes I'm a little lenient about, but but yeah, definitely in relationships, that's something that we can't be mad at them if we're the ones not keeping the boundary. It's on us. It's our responsibility.
So, what do they look like then? And how do you communicate them clearly? I think even before we go here, I just want to
Uh-huh.
pause for a moment and just remind you guys that Jesus had boundaries. This is not like a modern day thing that we came up with to control people. That's not what this
Right.
is about.
It's true.
Jesus would say, I'm going to go alone now and pray. I'll
Yeah.
be back.
Yep.
We see that especially clearly in the Garden of Eden, or
Yeah.
in the Garden of Gethsemane at
Yeah.
the end,
Yeah.
right before the cross,
Right.
where he's like, he went away intentionally and he said, you guys stay here, you three come with me. I'm
Yeah.
going to go over there. And those, he set very clear boundaries throughout
Yeah.
his ministry, at the same time modeling, like the moment he heard that John the Baptist had been beheaded. I mean, this had to be, of all of his whole life disappointments or sadnesses, this had to be the biggest one, I would think, because first of all, John had been his forerunner. He owed a lot to John as far as gratitude went. And then John was his cousin. And he knew that in the same way God had not stopped them from beheading John, God would not stop them from crucifying him. This had to be like the biggest sad grief blow in his human life. And so he says, I'm going to go off by myself. And he tries, and the people follow him. And it says he had compassion on the crowd and he ministered to them. He
Yeah.
held them. So we can set boundaries and still allow the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
to shift a boundary when it needs to be shifted. So don't make boundaries your God. That's not the goal here.
Right.
The boundary is to help you understand how to make most decisions most of the time. All right. So what do they look like and how to communicate them?
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you brought up Jesus, because that was kind of one of my points, is that Jesus, he showed compassion and care for his disciples, and he went and washed their feet, and showed them that. That's a good leadership quality, I think. But then, like you said, he withdrew and he took that time to rest and to pray. And that has to be a boundary for us, because sometimes we get so wrapped up in, everybody needing this and this and that. And you want to be the fixer and you want to do all the things. But then what happens is you become completely wiped out. You're burned out and you have nothing to give. And so God created boundaries in the Garden of Eden, right? He's the one that created. Sometimes I think some people think boundaries are just to be mean, like you're just being mean with that boundary.
Right.
You're not. God created boundaries for our safety, our wellness, our protection. They're for a reason. And so if God created them, well, then they're for us to use. So I think that's important. I think sometimes in the workplace, we can keep in mind that maybe a boundary, in a sense, is instead of showing someone rudeness, you can be gracious to them, or instead of being harsh, you can be kind, and instead of being irritated at them, you can show them patience. And I think those are good boundaries for us to keep. Instead of just reacting and lashing out at people, we just step back and we do these qualities, these beautiful things that God created and wants us to live in. And so I think that is really important. And I think being consistent. Man, you got to have consistency. If not, then people are so confused. They don't know, well, she said this one over here, but now she's saying this over here. And just staying consistent in that is key, because it's going to keep everybody on the same page. It keeps everybody knowing what to expect from you. And it's just a good place to be.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of a couple examples that are coming to my mind of specific boundaries. And one of the things I learned when I was homeschooling my children was that if there is a problem, you don't have to worry about correcting it big time the first time it shows up. If it's a real problem, it'll keep showing up.
Right.
And so typically, I really like the baseball rule of 3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah, that's good.
When we had our restaurant, that was my policy. A customer could come in and be rude to my staff, or could come in and ask for refunds 3 times. But after the 3rd time, we're like, we just think you need a different restaurant. It's just working out for you here. That hardly ever happened. But I learned with my children that if it was going to really need to be addressed, it would come up again and again. And you can apply this to your teams as well. And
Mhm.
you set a new boundary, you set a new thing that you're going to hold them accountable
Mhm.
for when you see the need to do it, not because you're the boss.
Right.
You don't just make a whole bunch of arbitrary rules. You
Right.
make rules that make sense for your people at the time that you're making the rule. And
Yeah.
then communicating them is really important. And so, also with your team, when
Mhm.
you've employed a new rule, a new boundary,
Mhm.
then you just want to give them up to 3 times to muck it up before they get it nailed down.
That's
People can't just turn on a dime and do it totally different than they were doing it before. And
right.
so to do that. Now, one of the things that's coming to my mind for a boundary, we had a sales rep that was a man, and our manager at the restaurant at the time was a woman. And when I would be in the room with him, he would come very close into your personal space, very close,
Hmm.
inappropriately close. And I observed him do that with her as well. And so I took him aside into a private space and I just said, "You're too close. You're coming too close to us. It feels uncomfortable."
Mhm.
So then he backed off for a while. And then
Uh-huh.
he started in again.
Mm.
Then I took him aside again and I said, "It's too close, Dave. You have to back up."
Yeah.
And then he did it again later. And then I called his manager. Okay. So this is the process we take. We give people grace to learn, to make mistakes, to
Mhm.
forget rather, but then we move forward with whatever disciplinary action needs to be taken at the time. And
Yeah.
these could be as big or as small as somebody infringing your personal space,
Yeah.
all the way up to dropping the ball repeatedly, deadlines being missed repeatedly, or them stepping into someone else in a ministry situation that was hurtful or
Mhm.
inappropriate. And some of these you don't give 3 tries to. If it's something that's going to hurt somebody else, you actually need to escalate that faster. Thoughts that are coming to your mind.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's just being able to stay in that boundary, like this isn't okay, and you're continually to repeat it. So now we have to take this a step further.
Right.
This needs to be stopped, and it's just not healthy for the rest of the team. And you're there to protect kind of yourself, but everyone, in it.
And boundaries can be communicated interestingly. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to share one that's coming to your mind in a moment. But one of my favorites that we set here at the house, our children, when they were younger, I'm thinking maybe like early teens, but I can't even remember. They might have been a little younger than that.
Uh-huh.
Um, they had a couple of times they had been angry and they went into a room and slammed the door.
Mm.
So like the second or third time that happened at the dinner table that night, my husband said, "We have a new rule. You're feel free to slam the doors, but there is a $5 slamming fee
Ooh.
that's going to go into effect today because what happens is it ruins the door. It ruins the jam, it ruins the door, and I'm the one that's going to have to fix that. So if
Right.
you want to slam the door, you're going to have to pay me to
Yes.
do the eventual repair that's going to come from it." So he gave them a boundary. He
Mhm.
told them exactly how much it was going to cost them,
Mhm.
and he told them why he
Yeah.
was setting the boundary.
Okay.
So that's a good example of setting a clear boundary. And I love that one because we called it the slamming fee. It only
Oh,
ever happened once after that.
they learned.
It was history.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I think what's coming to my mind is gossip. Gossip
Yes.
can be like wildfire in any kind of church setting,
Mhm.
any kind of,
Anywhere.
yeah, anywhere.
Mm.
And I think part of being proactive with that is to limit what you tell people. Like keep your personal stuff, and don't be sharing. Limit the access that you're giving to them. And if that's not something like, and they still seem to be making up stories and just wanting to spread wildfire, I think that limiting your interaction with that person, keeping it very basic, like we're going to talk about the weather kind of thing, and you just really kind of withdraw yourself from that relationship.
All right. So we're not having podcast about gossip today, but I just have to throw this in. I have two things to say about that. So first of all, I have a personal standard for gossip that is, if I wouldn't say this, if the other person was in the room with us this moment, it is gossip.
Exactly. That's right.
So it's a pretty clear litmus test for me.
It
If I'm
is.
if I'm saying something and I think if they walked in right now, would I stop my sentence at midstream or would I just keep going? I was just telling them about,
Yeah.
if you can't do that, then you're gossiping and you want to be really modeling excellent
Right.
behavior in this area. If you're modeling gossip, that's
Yeah.
what you're going to get. The
Yeah.
other thing about gossip, and this is the thing that I think is really kind of unfair about gossip, is when you tell someone a secret and you don't you expect them not to share something with somebody else.
Yeah.
That's really unfair. You have actually unburdened yourself on them, but now you expect them to not unburden themselves on anybody else. It
Yeah.
is a perpetuating situation.
Right.
So if you actually don't want anybody to tell anybody about it, you tell God about it and
Yeah.
you let it stop there.
That's
You've
true.
told someone. He
Right.
needs to be that real to us anyway. I mean, if he's not that real to you, pray more. Get to
Right.
know him better. He is
Right.
that real. He really can be that sounding board for you. And
Yeah.
if you expect other people to keep your secrets, it's really an unfair expectation because everybody needs to tell at least one person. But
Yeah.
you just did. So why do you think they won't?
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
That's really a good, powerful point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Okay, so let's move on to boundaries because that's what we're talking about today. But
Yes.
that gossip one is a big one, and it can really destroy a team. Yeah, it really can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when should you add a new boundary?
I think when your team is really feeling like just you notice that they're irritable or they're
Mhm.
disconnected or they're just not meeting their goals, something's not working. So I think that's a good place to kind of step back and evaluate, okay, what's happening here? For some reason they're being overwhelmed or they're not understanding what it might be. And I think that's a good spot to say, okay, we need a boundary here. What can we do? And then do that.
It was interesting how you started us off in this conversation about boundaries, and you started us off in a place I wasn't expecting. And I want you to dive into your thinking behind it.
Okay.
So you said something like a boundary is going to be responding with kindness and graciousness and patience. That's a new boundary. Now, I don't ever think of that as a boundary. I think of that as more like a character quality or a skill set or whatever. But
Yeah.
you included in boundaries. So what are you thinking about that? What is included in boundaries for you?
I think for me, that kind of resonated because some people are just like, it's just their character, it's just their nature to just react with just a harsh tone or
Mhm.
just being, snippy and irritated and aggravated at them. But if you step back and say, okay, my boundary, my core is that I don't want to be that kind of person. So instead, I'm going to set a boundary for myself that instead of
That's it.
being this, I'm going to choose to be this.
So you then, this is brilliant because that's how it always should be. You actually set boundaries with yourself first, then you set boundaries with other people. So you would say, I am the kind of person that does not react violently or with anger in the moment. And then when other people do that to me, I am also allowed to set a boundary there. And honestly, you guys, that's one of the hardest things for teams to tolerate is a boss or a team leader, just somebody that's in authority over you,
Yeah.
setting a boundary on you that they personally do not adhere to.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my daughter again, she had a terrible situation with one of her jobs and it was just they had no boundaries in how they treated her. And it was really hard for her because she wanted to please them. And so it was she was struggling because it was affecting her work-life balance. Like it was depleting from her home and her child and her husband. And so she had to kind of evaluate, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to choose to stay in this the rest of my life and deal with this? Or am I going to pull back and try to set a boundary here? And setting a boundary with them probably wasn't going to work. So her other option was, well, I need to find somewhere else
Mm-hmm.
to work. And that's what she did. She pulled out and has been happy. But then again, she's got to have a clear understanding of, okay, from now on, this is my boundary. This is not going to infringe on my family time. This is just where I'm going to draw the line. When you have vacation time, take your vacation time. Don't work on your night when you're home at night. Don't work. It's not a time to do that, because then it's just taking away from everything. Your family comes first, and you don't want to look back and say, I allowed not having boundaries with these work situations to affect my home life, and now I have missed everything important. So
I think that's in that example too, a lot of times we do learn from life experiences, and we set better boundaries going forward, and there's no guilt or shame. I always say, life is very much like a toddler learning to walk. They don't just decide one day to walk and stand up running. That is how it goes,
Right.
They figure out how to pull themselves up next to the couch, and then
Exactly.
it's like it goes from there.
Exactly.
Lots of falls, lots of mistakes, and don't beat yourself up on this, but do start thinking about boundaries in a way that will help nurture your health as a person, not just physically, but emotionally, relationally, financially, whatever you need, time, resources. Set boundaries that make sense for that. Just pray through that with God. And then as you're setting boundaries for yourself, it's going to become very comfortable for you to set reasonable boundaries with your team, with your people that are working with you. And it's just the way it's supposed to be. That it starts with us. So,
yeah.
And that's our next thing is relationships, how they thrive. That.
Well, and I think of another thing with Jesus, and he didn't allow people to guilt him or manipulate him or demand things from him. He said, this is what I'm willing to do, and this is what I'm not willing to do. And he stuck with it, and he didn't let it, bring him down. So
I even think of a couple examples with his disciples where he expected them to be at a higher level of faith than they were at.
Yeah.
And so I think about him in the boat, and there's a storm, and he's sleeping, and they're all freaking out. And so they go wake him up, and he gets up and he says, peace be still. And then he looks at him and he says, really, guys?
Right.
You have enough faith for this?
Right.
Another time there was, they'd been healing people. They'd been doing the miracles and seeing the results. And then this guy brings his son, and they couldn't do it. And they come to him separately, and he says to them, you are such a crazy bunch of people. You totally have enough faith for this. You totally know what to do here. Yeah. And so, as a leader, sometimes one time to Peter, he just turned around and said, get behind me, Satan.
Right.
When Peter was stepping way out of line, telling God what to do. Right. So as a leader, there are going to be times that you're going to step into your team, and you're going to have to do some correction or some calling them to a higher level or whatever. But the important thing is to do it through the Holy Spirit, which is the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace. Like those things, we don't want to become. We don't want to become a raging maniac and doing it in our own flesh. So that's the key there. Yeah. All right. So as we're talking about boundaries now, what are the tools that you help people use to move forward in this?
I think just really being clear on your yes and your no without over explaining. It's not always necessary to give a full explanation, and just resisting the urge to be that people pleaser, encouraging your people not to do that. Jesus, like I said, he didn't allow all that. And the sky is not going to fall if you don't do it all. So it's okay to regulate or assign, I guess would be a better word, to maybe other members of the team rather than it all falling on one person. And because that becomes a burnout. And just understanding your team's limits and working with that, helping them to navigate, where they need to go a little better, a little smoother. I don't know. Is that answering the question?
Yeah, no, you did great. Okay. So one of the things I had read a study years ago about the use of the word because, And so I always use that whenever I can
Uh-huh.
in a setting a boundary or
Uh-huh.
making a new rule or something like that. I use the word because. And what they did in this survey, they had people standing in the old days where you stood in front of a copy machine in the hallway in
Uh-huh.
line waiting for your turn to make copies for your team.
Uh-huh.
And now it isn't so much that way anymore. But what they did is they had somebody just go up to the front of the line and just say, "Excuse me, could I go in front of you?" And they gave no reason at all. And they had like a 90% no, get in line, you know?
Mm.
And then they said, they had somebody go up and they used the phrase, could I step in front of you because we are on a deadline and it's a really big deal for the company
Mm.
that, yeah. And then like 90% of the people were like, yeah, sure, come on.
Okay, that's good.
And then, but what was the interesting thing was that they had the person just that would go up to the front of the line and say, "Would you mind if I went in front of you because?" And they just stopped right there without any reason, and
Yeah.
they had almost the same level of response as the person who gave a good reason.
Oh, interesting.
There's something in our minds that want to have a reason to
That's
do it. And it doesn't even have to be like a great reason, but
yeah.
they need a reason. And so after reading that study, I added that because to most of the things that I'm asking people to do for me, that's a new thought for them. And it
Yeah.
comes into play with boundaries a lot. Um, like Dave said with the kids, you know, I'm not just charging you $5 because I need the $5. I'm charging it to you because that's how much it's going to cost. If that door breaks, I'm going to need to have that saved up to
Right.
fix the door.
Yeah.
And as we give people a reason for why we're making this rule, it does help them to step into agreement with it and get behind you as a leader.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. That
Yeah.
was really good. Yeah. Yeah. And a friend of mine, she's been in ministry since she was a little girl and even now as an adult alongside her husband. But she says by communicating boundaries with both grace and conviction, we create a healthier ministry environment where people thrive and
Mhm.
leaders can serve faithfully for the long haul. And so I don't know, it's just, did I say conviction? Grace and connection.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that the bottom line that you and I have discovered for ourselves is that it makes the relationships stronger when we have healthy boundaries
Yeah.
instead of just there's another way that I have to describe when someone doesn't have healthy boundaries and they all of a sudden step into me for something I didn't know would bother them.
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's a shark and you're just swimming on a nice day and all of a sudden a shark grabs your leg and takes you under the water.
Yeah.
It's so shocking. And it was really funny. I had this happen on an Amtrak one time. I was on the train. It was
Mhm.
my first time on an Amtrak. And I was breaking rules I didn't know existed. But the people that rode the Amtrak all the time knew about these unspoken
Mhm.
rules. And I kept getting in trouble. And
Oh,
I'm not a troublemaker. I'm usually not
right.
a troublemaker at all. But who knew you couldn't do these things? Anyway, it was a reminder to me that
Right.
when the whole group knows the rules and then somebody comes in and they don't know the rules, that's another time to
Yes.
extend grace in the learning curve, whether it's a new team leader or a
Mhm.
new team member. Give
Mhm.
them grace as they learn the rules that you guys already have in place. Well, this has been really great. I want you guys to just go ahead and follow up with Tricia over at her website, triciakclark.com. What are they going to find when they get over there?
They are going to find how to apply boundaries in some deeper ways and with some tools and things like that to for healthier relationships altogether, not just the leadership, but in all of our relationships.
Great. And you're also a speaker. You guys can reach out to Tricia at womenspeakers.com. She's available to speak at your events. So, Tricia, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
My joy. And thanks you guys for joining us. We had a great time. I hope this was helpful. Be sure to check out Tricia's website, as well as one of my favorite books on boundaries is Boundaries by I can't even think who it's by right now, but Boundaries in Marriage. They got a whole string of them and the
Yeah.
workbooks that go with it. And those have been really helpful as well. So whatever you can do, whatever you need to do next, take that step, move forward with
Yeah.
Jesus in the area of boundaries and enjoy healthier relationships. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.